So tonight we're going to begin a new series. The series is going to be about business ethics. And the topic is the self-destructive power of greed. What greed has done to people, what greed has done to families, and what greed is doing to nations. Lately, you're hearing in the news about negotiations going on between world powers. And you wonder, why is it that it's so difficult for peaceful coexistence? Why is peaceful coexistence so elusive? It's so difficult to negotiate. Negotiations are taking so long to come to some sort of agreement. Recently we spoke about compromise, how beautiful compromise is, how helpful it is, how beautiful it is. Then why are nations having so many difficulties in compromising, in reaching some mutual accord? The short answer to this is what President de Gaulle from France used to say. Nations don't have friends, they have interests. And it's not your interest, it's their own interest. And that is what we call greed. It's interesting how we've heard so much about battles against cancer, against AIDS, and in the past even against polio. A lot of those battles, difficult battles, have been won. The medicine world has been very successful in overcoming many illnesses that have been around for such a long time and that have caused so much death and suffering for many, many years. Here we have a battle against the worst disease of all time, a disease that has been around forever, a pervasive disease called greed. And no one is even trying to do battle with this disease. No one is doing anything to try to tackle this problem. And how do we know that this is a disease? Because the rabbis tell us, the rabbis remind us that envy, desire, and the pursuit of honor remove a person from this world. What does it mean it removes a person from this world? It destroys his life. It destroys families. So much is lost and very little gained as a result of envy, hatred, disputes, lawsuits, and all because of greed, usually. Now, when we're dealing with nations, the problems that people have are even more magnified. But we're not going to be talking so much about nations right now, just about human beings. People are having a lot of troubles these days. One of those areas of trouble is called white-collar crime. Do you know how much crime of greed there is? Crime committed as a result of greed. White collar, businessmen, professionals, corporations, and it's all about greed. Well, what is greed? What exactly is greed? Greed is not only the desire to accumulate, the strong desire to accumulate money. The root of greed is vanity and malice. What that means is that a person thinks more about himself than about the other. He doesn't care about the poor fellow. He cares more about himself. So there's vanity because of what he thinks of himself. He thinks of himself so highly. He's vain. And there's malice. That means he's insensitive to another individual's needs. Who do you think is affected by this? How many people are affected by this? You'll be surprised. The rabbis tell us the majority of people, in various degrees. The Talmud says, "Ruban begezel, mi'ut be'arayot, v'kulan be'avak lashon hara." If you look at the world and you look at the various crimes committed, various sins and transgressions that are committed by mankind, you will find different percentages. Ruban begezel means that the majority of the people make a mistake in areas that are associated with stealing or with cheating. Now, that doesn't mean that people literally steal, but people can easily succumb to something similar to stealing. Not paying someone on time, pushing off a check, and giving some excuse that the check is in the mail. That's also a form of stealing. Deceit, overcharging. So when we say the majority of people make this mistake or succumb to their evil inclination in areas of thievery, we're talking about all kinds of thievery. Anything that resembles stealing or taking somebody else's money. Then you have those, the minority, not the majority, who have a weakness for immoral behavior. Let's call that. Arayot, immoral behavior, immoral relationships. They have a weakness in that area. And then you have a lot of people, of course, who have trouble with slanderous talk. That's called lashon hara. So there's different percentages, and some people have a greater weakness in one area, and some people have a greater weakness in another area. But the emphasis here is on ruban begezel. Ruban begezel means a lot of people can easily fall into this trap. And this trap of taking somebody else's money or not caring about somebody else's money is unfortunately very prevalent. The question is why? Why should so many people have this weakness of wanting to have money, even if it means taking somebody else's money? Why should it be such a great desire? Why should people be so interested in it, be so attracted, be pulled by this? What's so powerful about money? So the rabbis tell us, look at the Hebrew word kesef for money. The word kesef comes from the word nichsaf, to desire. Instinctively, man is pulled, or man desires that we call money because it has power. It's alluring. And because it's so alluring, the rabbis tell us, En adam met v'chatzi ta'avato biyado. He doesn't leave this world not even having half of his desire. He's continuously desiring. He always wants more and more and more, even though he has millions. Or as the verse says, Ohev kesef lo yisba kesef. If you love money, then you will never be satisfied. You will always want more. Doesn't it ever end? No, because part of this desire is to accumulate it, and the other half of this desire is to spend it. By the time you've accumulated, you may be gone from this world. In other words, a person does not even live long enough to enjoy all the money that he may have worked so hard on accumulating. So it's an unending interest and pursuit of something that he may never be happy with, may never be content with, of having enough. Because of this, you can understand now why there's an emphasis in the Torah, in the Aseret HaDibrot, in the Ten Commandments. What's the last one? Lo tachmod, don't covet, don't desire that which is not yours, that which perhaps is not coming to you. Just be happy with what God has given you. That should be enough. That should be sufficient. He takes care of your needs. He knows what you need. Don't look at the other side. You know how people say the grass is greener on the other side? Don't look at that. Don't wander off and ask yourself, why is it that he has more than me? Don't ask those kind of questions. Don't be so curious about what others have. Stay off. Focus on what you have. Be happy with what you have. And don't look to get more and more and more. This is not what life is all about, to accumulate money. But for some, apparently, that is their goal. That is their goal, and that is their God. We see further in the Torah that the Torah warns the judges, warns the righteous people. Those who are wise, be careful with the bribe. Shochad, bribery, money, that can even blind the eyes of the wise, of the righteous. It can distort everything. Even though you're wise, even though you're righteous, and you can't be corrupted so easily? Well, depending on how much money they offer you. Maybe $1,000 won't corrupt you, but what about $10,000? What about $100,000? At some point, people will be corrupted. Not everyone, but a lot, unfortunately. So the Torah has to warn even the righteous and the wise, be careful with a bribe. Don't say, I'm going to pocket this money and it won't affect me. If you're the judge, it's going to affect you. Bribery affects. It influences our mind. It distorts our view. And therefore, it will distort the judgment, our proper judgment of this particular case that we're evaluating. Be careful with bribery. And there's all kinds of bribery out there. You know, in business, they take you out to lunch. That's a form of bribery. They want your business. I'll buy you lunch. You'll be surprised. And if we have time, we'll talk about that in another lecture. One has to be extremely careful if he wants to really be objective, that he's not bribed perhaps by views that he may have had in the past, that these views are so well established in his mind that he's unwilling to entertain perhaps other views about some subject that interests him. He's already made up his mind. That's also a form of bribery. He's comfortable with that. He doesn't want to hear about something else that may threaten the views that he's held so long. He's not open, therefore, to it. He's bribed. That is what bribery does. In Judaism, there is a tremendous emphasis on being very, very meticulous, scrupulous, careful in business matters. Because when we reach upstairs, when we leave this world, we go to the upper world, we're going to be judged. One of the questions that is going to be put to us, one of those areas in our life that is going to be examined is Nasata v'natata b'emunah. Were you honest in your business dealings? Were you honest? Did you conduct yourself properly? Why should this be one of the questions? Why should they examine this so much? Why should they care so much? It obviously must be important. If there's no honesty amongst people, I mean, society falls apart if people are dishonest. It is so important for the moral fiber of society to be intact, for a family to be intact, for partners to stay together, for friends to stay friends. If there's honesty between them, trust, you remove honesty, you remove trust, and everything falls apart. So when they ask us about this area of our life, they're basically telling us, listen, this matters a lot. This says a lot about you, if you were honest or not. You can't be dishonest in business and be a nice guy. I mean, if you're dishonest, you're just dishonest. And it says a lot about a person. A great deal about a person is his honesty or lack of honesty. And we know that this is important because if you look back to Bereshit, you look back to the Mabul, to the major flood, the biblical flood, what do you see? You see that the Torah emphasized that the reason why God brought the flood and destroyed all of mankind, what's the main reason, even though there was more than one? Because of Hamas, because of thievery. That's the only one that's mentioned. That's the only sin that's indicated, even though there were many sins. It says so. They were very sinful. They were very sinful. They were very sinful. Then why point just to one? Hamas, thievery. That just comes to show you how serious this is. They didn't respect each other's privacy. They stole from each other. Look what this brought upon them. Destruction. And according to our tradition, the same happens today, at all times. Many of the natural phenomena, natural disasters, whether it's drought or some disease or some plague, whatever, can be as a result of some terrible sin. We believe that strongly because we believe in Hashgacha. There's divine providence. God did not just create the world and bail out. He's still around. He's still watching what we are doing. And sometimes he takes action immediately, sometimes he postpones it. And it could very likely be that some terrible problem is occurring in some country, in some area of the world, as a result of lack of justice, as a result of corruption and thievery. Even though we know that this is a terrible sin, to steal, to be greedy, to think of yourself and not about others, nonetheless, a lot of people still continue to do it. And we said that this has to do with the strong desire that people have. But wait a minute. Even though people have such a strong desire, why don't they look at what has happened to others who have succumbed to this evil inclination? They've been caught. They've gone to jail. They've paid a very heavy price for their crime. Greed does not pay off. Crime does not pay. Then why don't people learn a lesson? Why are people still repeating the same mistakes of others? Don't they see that this is wrong? Don't they see that this doesn't pay? That this is so destructive? Don't they see this? Why don't they learn? What's the answer to this? Why aren't people learning from the mistakes of others? They can see them in jail. Some of them are 20, 30 years in jail because of this. Then why don't they learn from the mistakes of others? So let me tell you a story that perhaps partially answers this question. There was once a rabbi, a little over 200 years ago, that went collecting money for a very important cause. He was having a very hard time. People weren't giving him, people weren't helping. And he decided, you know what, why waste my time here? At least I can go back home, spend some time with my family. You know, I'm not doing well here. I haven't been successful. So maybe I shouldn't stay that long. So before he's about to go home, he's asked by the community, you know, Rabbi, you're here. Can you please go visit the thief who's in jail? He says, a thief in jail? Who's this? Yeah, this is one of the members of the community who was caught. You know, and he has this weakness. He's a thief, and he's in jail. Perhaps if you speak to him, you know, he'll stop being a thief. Perhaps he'll understand that it's wrong, and perhaps you will educate him on how to be a better person. So the rabbi agreed. He says, I'm already here. I might as well go speak to someone. Maybe I can help him. So the rabbi goes to the thief, goes to visit him in jail, and he tells him as follows. You see, crime doesn't pay. You see, you stole, you were caught, you landed yourself in jail. Look at you. Look at where you are. It doesn't pay. So the thief tells the rabbi, Rabbi, you have it all wrong. I was caught. Next time I'll try harder not to be caught. You're right. They caught me this time, but I'm going to try again. And hopefully next time they won't catch me. You think the rabbi was surprised by this answer? Obviously, some of the thieves, that's what they're thinking. But the rabbi was taken aback for another reason. He said, wait a minute, I just learned something from a thief. There's a famous saying, if at first you don't succeed, try and try again. You heard that? The rabbi says, why am I giving up so quickly and going back home? I just learned something from the thief. If at first you don't succeed, try and try again. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to continue trying to raise funds for this cause. He learned that from the thief. The thief, of course, was thinking about something completely different. Yes, he was caught this time, but he's going to try again. Hopefully the next time he won't be caught. He doesn't want to give up. That's incredible. Even though many of them are aware of the consequences of their actions, that desire is so strong, they actually are thinking that one of these days they'll just get away with it. They won't be caught. what I gather from all of this is that the world today is pointing a finger at all types of enemies out there. There's so many types of enemies that they have to deal with and wage war against. But they're forgetting that there's another enemy to look at. Look inwardly, and you will see that there's an enemy within. And that enemy within is called greed. And that enemy, you have to hopefully gather a strong coalition of nations to do battle with. It's not enough to just point a finger at all the enemies that are out there. And they're enemies perhaps, all kinds of enemies. But this enemy is for some reason being forgotten about. An enemy within, an enemy that is more destructive, much more destructive than all those enemies that potentially are out there. Look inwardly, look at the enemy within. And who's that enemy? The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. He's there all the time, 24/7, every day of our life, trying to mislead us. And who is fueling this enemy? Where is he getting the fuel? Do you know? Well, one source of the fuel of this enemy is the TV. Do you know how many crime scenes kids see on TV? The rich and famous are also on TV. They see a lot of garbage on TV. Is it no wonder that they behave in a certain way today? What does TV stand for, do you know? Well, according to me, it stands for the 10 vices. Just like there's the 10 commandments, TV stands for 10 vices. Maybe there's more, right? Full of vices. That is what it is teaching people. Make money fast. You can do it. There are many books. How I Became a Millionaire. There are books like that. How to Become a Millionaire very quickly. Why do you think there's a book about that? Because that's how he became a millionaire, by selling you the book. There's no such thing as becoming rich very quickly. Wealth has to do with one's mazal, one's destiny. It has nothing to do with certain strategies or certain methods or certain types of businesses. Either it's in your mazal, in your destiny to be wealthy, or it's not. But there is this interest, and there's this drive that people have today, more than ever. Let's get rich quick. And sometimes that quick is at the expense of the law. Now let me share with you an interesting research that was done by the University of California at Berkeley. The greedy rich people are more likely to lie, steal, cheat, behave unethically, and break the law than lower class people. Interesting, no? The greedy rich people, that means they're rich already. And they are the ones that are more likely to break the law. That just comes to show you how powerful this Yetzer Hara is, this evil inclination. They have money already, but they want more. Why? Money is power. Money is control. And it's insatiable. It's never ending. And it becomes a disease. What's worse about it is that this money does not make them happy. A lot of the greedy people are very unhappy people. A lot of times the money that they've accumulated makes their life much more difficult, much more cumbersome as a result of the money. And who tells us this? Kohelet, Solomon, in his book Ecclesiastes. Yesh osher hashamur leba'alav lera'ato. There is a wealth that is reserved for its master, for his detriment. That money can sometimes be detrimental. Yes, money could be a source of blessing. if we know how to use it right. With money, we can accomplish a lot. But sometimes this money can be a curse. People don't realize it. Children who are growing up, teenagers, and even adults, they dream about, if I only had more money, how much happier I would be. It's not true. Money does not buy happiness. On the contrary, many people who have become rich very quickly because they won the lottery or because of some other reason like an inheritance, their life has become more miserable, not happier. A lot of people got divorced after they made all this money. So if anything, money could be very detrimental. Lots of money, that is. In the pursuit of it, if people pursue it, if people want to get their hands on it, that could lead to all kinds of other trouble, including breaking the law, God forbid. People who are addicted to it, people who want to have more of it, they want to get their hands on it, they may succumb to almost anything and get their hands on it and try to get their hands on it. This has happened throughout history. Throughout the history of mankind, we've had this kind of problems. The pursuit of honor, envy, right? And desire, all kinds of desire. So what are we going to do about it? If you do nothing, then you lose. There's a very, very strong influence outside in the street that's competing for your children. The street is competing for our children. The street has its own values, and they're not necessarily the right values. And if we are not proactive, then we lose. Because the tendency is for kids, or for anybody, any human being, to be pulled by the trend, to be influenced by society, or what he sees and hears, or what he sees other people doing. So if we don't do anything, you lose. In order to compete with this trend, in order to do battle with it, in order to win, we have to be proactive. And being proactive means teaching the right values to our children early on, at home. What should those values be? Well, Judaism emphasizes emet, yashrut, and nedivut. Emet means truth, truthfulness. Yashrut means honesty. Nedivut means kindness. These are three very important qualities, virtues, that are not negotiable. To always say the truth, to be a truthful person, to admit one's mistakes. Honesty in everything we do. A word is a word. A promise is a promise. Yeshrut. Be honest. And nedivut means kind, charitable, caring about others. If one adopts early on these three qualities, there are more, but just these three, you know what it will do to the individual? It is a complete opposite and contrary to all the other values that we've been talking about, the wrong values of greed, of envy, right? Of the pursuit of honor. If we adopt these three, we teach these three to our children, it will be easier for them to stay away from trouble. To take something that is not theirs, they would never dare do that if they were properly trained with truthfulness, honesty, and being kind to others. What else? Very important that in one's home, one not emphasize too much in an exaggerated way materialism. If father and mother puts great emphasis on materialism, fancy cars, luxury items, and so forth, that is also has a very negative influence on the children. They will aspire for that too. They will want to have that too. But what if you don't have the money for that? What if you can't afford it? Is it that important for you, these things? These are not important. Another important idea is what the rabbis emphasize, is to be sameach bechelkecha. Be always content with what you have. This is what you have. Be happy with it. Ezu ashir, who is a wealthy man, the rabbis ask. Who is truly wealthy? Whoever is content with what he has. Not one who has $1 billion in his bank account. Not the one who owns half the block, who has tons of real estate. No, one who's content with what he has. There's a lot of people who have very little, but are much happier than those that have millions, I assure you. They're content with what they have. They spend time with their family, with their kids. They go to the park. I see this in Latin America all the time. Poor people, they don't earn that much. But when it comes Sunday, they take their kids to the park and they buy them trinkets, balloons, whatever the children want. They barely have anything. They don't have that much. Look how they spend family time. Look what's important to them. Look what they value. And they're so happy if they have 1.5 rooms to live in. Yeah. Now, obviously, it would be better if we had 2.5 rooms. We want to be comfortable. But the point here is, in case you don't have, be happy and be thankful that you're healthy, you have children, you have a devoted spouse. Never look at the cup that is half empty. Look at it that it's half full. You have so much to be happy about. Train yourself, therefore, to be content with what you have, with whatever God has given you. Those who pursue money are usually not happy. Judaism also emphasizes another very important concept that so many people, even religious Jews, fail to adapt. And that is bitachon b'Hashem. Trust in God. They believe in God. Yes, I believe. God created the world. Do you know what trust means? And there's a whole lecture about the difference between faith and trust. The difference between emunah and bitachon. Bitachon, trust means to rely on Him. He knows what He's doing. He provides for you. He takes care of you. He knows what your needs are. And if something is not going on right in your life, pray to Him, because He will listen. All of that is covered by bitachon. One who has a strong relationship with God, he relies and trusts in Him. He will never be unhappy. He will always understand that everything is for the best, because his Father in heaven is looking after him. He loves him. It's his child. And even though we don't understand him, doesn't mean that he doesn't love us. He still loves us, but we don't understand everything he does. That requires a level of bitachon that not everybody has. It takes tremendous amount of effort to build up one's faith to the level of bitachon, of reliance and trust in God. But ultimately, this does so much to the individual. It strengthens his bond with God. It makes him happier. Bitachon goes hand in hand with happiness. One who is happy is because he has bitachon. One who has bitachon is indicative that he is happy. In order to avoid problems with money, and I say problems because a lot of people become entangled in areas of money, whether it's arguments about an inheritance or some other fight, some other dispute in business. In order to avoid being entangled with this problem, it would be a good idea for one to sanctify the money. In Judaism and in the Kabbalah, there's emphasis on sanctifying the material world, elevating it. We live in a physical material world. It doesn't mean that we have to stay away from it in order to conquer it, in order to avoid its pitfalls. No, use it, but elevate it, sanctify it. If we use it right for the right reasons, it will not, God forbid, cause us any problems. If we use it in the wrong way, we will be slaves to it. We don't want to be a slave to the money. We want to be the masters of it. We want to use it in the right way, in a proper way, in an intelligent way. Then elevate it, sanctify it, use it for good things, not just for your own personal needs. Share it with others. Be charitable, be kind. If one engages himself in this kind of an activity of sharing his wealth with others, of being charitable, then that money won't hurt him. That is our tradition. It's a very clear tradition that if one elevates that which is material and physical, then the physical and material will not hurt him. Rabbis also remind us that this world is a temporary world. Before you know it, we have to pack up our bags and leave. We're not sticking around here forever. And that money is not coming with us to the grave either. And you know, there's a saying in Yiddish that on the shrouds, they don't make pockets. The shrouds with which you cover the dead, there are no pockets because he's not going to be taking anything with him. We're leaving it all behind. And I have some bad news for some people. They may be living all their hard-earned money to the second husband of their wife. What a shame. They worked so hard for it, and they don't get to enjoy it, and they leave it to someone else. They don't think about that. However, there is one way that a person can stay easily focused on all of this without forgetting about himself, without forgetting that he's here temporarily. And that is what Solomon emphasizes in his book Kohelet. You know what your goal should always be? You know where your focus should always be? And this way you will not lose yourself. Make sure that your focus is on Tov Shem Yishem and Tov. A good name is better than the most expensive oil. Focus on having a good name and a good reputation. You want people to be happy with you. You don't want people to be disappointed at you, to complain about you, whether it's during your life or after your death. Strive to earn a good name. If one focuses on this, this is a very important goal, a primary goal. Tov Shem Yishem and Tov. I want to earn a good name. I want to have a good name. If this is so important to you, then hopefully you won't be lost. You won't be distracted. You will stay focused. As long as you really care about this sincerely, about a good name. What about countries and nations? What lesson can they learn? Could you imagine if all the nations of the world would get together and instead of thinking of spending money and sending a mission to Pluto, they would use all their resources, all the money that they have, and invest in solving the world's problems, to try to solve poverty, famine, all the troubles that afflict mankind. If they would take all the resources they have and work together, cooperate together, instead of fighting each other, instead of competing against each other, work together as one family to make this a better place, a better world, then Mashiach would have come a long time ago, obviously. The opposite has happened. So many wars, so much trouble, so much antagonism between all kinds of religions and beliefs and philosophies and interests. They all have different interests. But could you imagine what they can do? They have proven themselves that they can accomplish a lot in other areas of science, for example. Tremendous achievements, beautiful things that they've done, admirable. To put somebody on the moon, you know what it takes? It's not easy. They've demonstrated incredible ingenuity in doing all kinds of things. They used all their resources and they worked together. they can accomplish so much more than working against each other and competing. What a shame. And the bad news is that this will be this way, unfortunately, until Mashiach comes. I don't foresee the world without the leadership of Mashiach taking the initiative of doing what's right. Just to finish up, Kohelet was telling us how it's important to focus on a good name and a good reputation. Even though a lot of people know how important a good name and a good reputation is, they're careless. In the end, people do want to have a good name. It's not that they don't want, but they are careless. They make a lot of mistakes. And as a result of their mistakes, they earn themselves a bad reputation. Going to jail is not something that I think too many people want to do. And it's not just the sitting in jail and being away from your family. It's the name, it's the reputation that has been damaged. And it's been damaged many times because something careless was done. And what was already done? Probably something that has to do with breaking the law. Right? Usually, that's otherwise why would people land in jail? Is there anything that they can do right now after they've damaged their name and reputation? Or is it just damage and that's it? It is possible. It is possible to restore your good name. Just like they tell you about bad credit. There's companies out there that will try to restore your bad credit, to give you good credit. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time getting a loan. People want to have good credit. They don't realize that through their carelessness, through their greed, right, they make all kinds of mistakes that ruin their credit. But if it did happen, at least pick up the pieces. If it happened to you that you've made mistakes, then start all over again. It's possible. And I have a whole lecture about this. God allows U-turns. We call this teshuvah. We call this repenting, returning. People who have made many blunders in their life, perhaps a lot of damage resulted as a result of all these blunders. Try to repair. Pick up the pieces. Whether it's relationships that were destroyed, or whether it was something that was done against the law. You can remake yourself, reinvent yourself by becoming a better person. It doesn't mean that someone who's greedy will always remain that way. You can detach yourself from that. You can adapt a new system of values and be a different person. It's up to the individual. We have free will. We're not stuck with anything. Except for that thief that we spoke about earlier, that is still thinking that he can get away with it the next time. What do you say about him? Will he ever change? Is that it? I mean, he's always going to be what he is? He will never change? And the answer to that is it all depends on how powerful that evil inclination is in the individual. If a human being is completely ignorant, if he has no spirituality, no spiritual content in his life, and all he thinks about is food, pleasure, money, if that's all he's going to think about, then obviously he's never going to change, because that's what's occupying his mind. The only chance for a person to actually change is if we can inject in him some spiritual content in his life. Then, all of a sudden, he will feel the good inclination pulling him, not only the evil inclination. He will stop being a slave to his weaknesses, to his vices. So many people are slaves. They're completely addicted and stuck in this way. No spiritual content in their life. And that's really a very important key to resolving a lot of problems in people's life, is spirituality. If all we have is a physical world with physical content, then obviously we won't see anything but physical. And that's all we want to have. We think that this is what will make us happy, but it's so not true. This does not make people happy. Just because you have a more comfortable home, you have a jacuzzi, you have a nicer car, these things will not make you happier. And the problems that were there before will continue to be problems. They're not going to go away. What's going to cure the greed? Not more money. On the contrary, you're fueling the greed even more. What is going to cure it? Only spirituality. A different set of values. A completely different set of values than what he's had before. Where is he going to get that from? Not from the street, not from the TV. The TV is selling you a completely different set of values, the wrong values. You want to do war with that? It's very difficult to do war with that. That's the trend. So it requires a tremendous amount of effort to convince someone, inject in your life more spirituality. You will see that you will become healthier. Not only physically, spiritually, you'll be a happier person. All of a sudden you'll see yourself not wanting those silly things that you've wanted for so many years. And you'll say to myself, how childish of me that I put so much effort to pursue these things. They only brought me more trouble with the law and with people. And it only gave me a bad name. And that's all I really, really want is a good name. I think everybody does. Well, then what needs to be done to earn that good name? Is to focus on what God wants and not on what we want. Greed is about what we want. And the opposite of that is what God wants. And in order to really want what God wants, we need to inject spirituality in our life. In the end, what matters the most is that when we leave this world, we'll leave with a good name, and we'll leave with a clean soul. As the Torah tells us, Baruch atah bevoecha, u'baruch atah betzetecha. You are blessed when you arrive in this world. May you also be blessed when you exit this world. What does that mean? When a baby arrives in this world, what a beautiful child, what a beautiful creation. He or she is a saint, clean from any sin. We're so happy for them, but we're not sure what they're going to make of themselves yet. That child, that beautiful saint, could be a monster one day, God forbid. Or they could be a very righteous individual. We're still excited for them, for having arrived in this world clean. What really matters and what's more important is that they leave this world in the same way they came. So Baruch atah bevoecha, Baruch atah betzetecha. In the same way that we are blessed when we arrive in this world, may it be the will of God that we should leave this world in the same way, clean, without any sins. That is something to strive for. How can you guarantee that? If we make mistakes, we're not perfect, by correcting them. Rabbis tell us, remember to do teshuvah every day, because tomorrow may be your last day. Or I should say, today may be your last day. Do teshuvah every day. Before you go to sleep, evaluate your day. What have I done right? What have I done wrong? Or did I just waste my day? Before you go to sleep, evaluate. That is what we Jews do. When we say Kriyat Shema before we go to sleep, we evaluate. We're supposed to evaluate what went on this day. Why? Because perhaps there's something that we need to repair. Why do it now? Because you may not have a chance to do it tomorrow, and you want to leave with a clean soul, not with a soul that has been stained or tarnished with all these, unfortunately, transgressions. God forbid. So this is a very valuable point, is to continuously strive for a good name, a good reputation. And by focusing on this, by wanting this very, very much, then God willing, we will succeed. That in the same way we came here without sin, in the same way we should leave here as well. Amen.